we're excited this game. I know our team, we've had a very different week of practice this week. Coming off of last week and not being ready to go, not being able to practice at all yesterday, or football activities yesterday. So different week, but our guys have handled that, and they've handled the kind of all the different adversities we've dealt throughout this year pretty well so far. So we're excited, big game, and that's why you love playing in these big games, and this is obviously another big game for us this year.
First up is Chip Towers at the AJC.
About Brenton Cox. Obviously he transferred. You tried to get him a waiver right away. He didn't, but he's able to play this year. Just first, is there ever any hesitation when a guy wants to transfer within the conference? Is that a part of the equation at all? And then secondly, could you just update us? I mean, we can see the stats. Obviously, he's a big part of your defensive package this year, but just what you think about Brenton as a player and a student athlete.
Yeah, well, I think, one of the things that you look at, I mean, you put a lot of things into anytime you look at transfers. It's obviously, over the last several years, how you evaluate transfers to me has changed. There's a lot more guys transferring these days, so you evaluate the transfers very differently than you used to, and Brenton's done a great job for us. One of the things, I think he's been SEC academic honor roll every semester since he's been here. Has been a great student athlete, takes care of his business in the classroom. Has done a great job that way. Unfortunately for him last year, not getting the waiver. Ended up being on the scout team last year, but had a great attitude, worked his tail off, and all the work that he put in last year, not being able to play, is showing this year. With his performance on the field and, and working, obviously missing spring practice, when you're going to be a first-year starter doesn't help, but he's overcome that and done a great job for us.
Thanks.
Next is Mac Engel, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram.
Hey, Coach, this question isn't about your team, but one of your former players. By any chance, have you had any dialogue at all with Dak Prescott since he got injured, and just your thoughts on him coming back and regaining the form that he had before his injury?
Yeah, I've talked to Dak, and obviously, that's a tragedy when that happens, when guys, suffer any type of injuries. I mean, it's heartbreaking. And, it's heartbreaking for us and the whole family. I mean, you consider him almost part of your family, my wife and my kids and we always view Dak as part of our family. And so I think that's obviously heartbreaking. But a guy like him, I think one thing, if anybody knows Dak Prescott and what you know about him, overcoming adversity, work ethic, toughness, fighting every day to be the best that he can be and overcome those things, that's who he is. And so, with him, I have no doubt there's not going to be anybody that's going to work harder to come back than he will. And, I expect, he'll come back better than when he left, because he's always trying to get better and always trying to improve himself.
Thanks, Dan.
Next is Pat Dooley of the Gainesville Sun.
Hey, Dan. Looking back at last year's game, how frustrating was that game for you to only have the 7 possessions and just feel like you couldn't get your hands on the ball?
Well, I think you look at how games play out, and games play out every different way, and you have to be ready for that type of game. And like you said, I think they had 8 possessions, we had 7 possessions, and and they won by 1 score. And I wish if it was flipped, maybe the result was flipped. If you look at, but that happens, and not just that game. That's every game. You got to be ready for how games play out, and then you got to be able to adjust within the games and efficiency, and hope you end on the positive ends of things. We had that in Texas A&M this year. I think they had 8 possessions, we had 7 possessions. Unfortunately, we were 1 possession short in those type of games, and I know there's games that have flipped the other way where we've had the extra possession and able to win at the end. So, you got to see how the game's going to play out this year. You have ideas and you have thoughts, and if it's going to be a low possession game, you have to be very efficient offensively, and you have to make the plays and make the stops at the right time defensively. If it's a higher possession game, you got to. If all of a sudden it's a bigger possession game and a higher scoring game, you got to be out there and you got to be able to win in the shootout. So it's I don't know how this year is going to play all out, and but we're prepared for. As a coach, you got to be prepared, and the team's got to be prepared to play every type of game possible.
I think for the last 14 years, the team that's run for the most yards has won the game. Obviously, you guys have been efficient running the ball, but you're not putting up big numbers. Do you think that stat could be irrelevant this year?
I don't know. I don't know how the plan plays out. I've been in these games before where all of a sudden you look. I think coming into the game you're going to look and say, hey, Georgia's going to want to run the ball and control the clock and a grinded out game, and we're going to be kind of a more possession, high scoring passing game. And it could flip. They could come out throwing the ball. We could come out running the ball. In the end of the game, you could see it flipped. I've had those before. I don't know that it'll be a factor. Obviously, I think a lot of the times when you look at some of those, a team that had the lead and then they ran the ball and held on to the ball, and so I don't know that the pure rushing yards is a key stat to it, and I think it can be skewed in terms of how the game plays out.
Thanks, Dan.
Next is Bob Holt in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.
Hey, Dan, I was going to ask you about that Russian stat. I read that in George's notes. 14 years, though, is that something you're aware of? Does that surprise you? And like you say, some years it might be relevant, other years not, but bottom line is 14 straight years, the team with the most rushing yards has won.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of times when you're into close games, all of a sudden the team that has the lead is going to try to run the ball. And so I think that can always skew that, you know what I mean? And so I don't know. I'd have to dive. You'd have to dive much deeper into that stat of why it was that way, and is that the most critical stat to the game? But I know I've heard. I remember hearing about it a lot and throughout the years. So I think I was here 14 years ago. I was in this game 14 years ago, I think. I knew it back then.
So you've been on both.
Talk about it.
Yeah, so you've been on both sides of that stat.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next we'll go to Gene Benetti of the Florida Union.
Listen, I know you're only 8 years old, I believe, in New Hampshire at the time. Do you have any memory as a child of the big Ballou to Lindsey Scott play, which is in SEC lore probably one of the top 2 or 3 plays in the history of the league? I'm just wondering, did you ever remember seeing it on TV live when you were 8 years old? And if not, what is your thoughts when you think about a play having such monumental impact on one program?
Yeah, no, I don't ever remember the play. I didn't even remember the play and I love college football. I feel bad about that. I think once I got in the league, I saw it when you were looking at like highlights of Florida Georgia game. So that's about all I know of the play, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll try to squeeze one more in. Let's go to Mike Griffith of the AJC.
Yeah, Coach. Obviously, Georgia, a lot of injuries against Kentucky. I think 4 starters left that game, and then Richard LeCounte. How much do you go back and refine the game plan when you see an All-American safety out or a nose tackle like Jordan Davis?
Well, obviously, when you play these games, and I think everybody wants to do it. We've been down a bunch of players all year. You love to see the best players on each team play. When you're in such a big game, I know we want to. We want their best. I know they want our best. I'm glad to see with Richard. I know I think he's a fantastic football player. And then I think everybody's a little worried about that. I'm glad to see that he's safe and gonna recover. And healthy, and it's not as severe, an accident as I heard it potentially could have been. So I'm happy for him. He's in our prayers with that. But I think everybody wants to see the best of both teams play. So anytime you have the injuries, and this is such a unique year with all the COVID stuff and all of that happening, it's kind of, it just kind of 2020 kind of is what it is, but for us, I mean, they have, I think you watch those guys and they rotate a lot of players. They have depth. They have some talent. It's not like they don't have good players behind that. The next man up mentality can step in and play, and I know those guys will be excited to get on the field just the same as our guys when they get the opportunity. But we've been down numbers all year, and have that same next guy up mentality that next guy's ready for his opportunity to go get on the field and show what he can do.
And just follow up the way you guys responded to your COVID. It looked like Florida second half. You probably didn't know what to expect. Your thoughts on the way your team came off the COVID break?
You know what? I was really pleased. We were still down a whole bunch of starters in the game and players, and the trickle-down effect that has, and guys missed a lot of practice during the week. But I was pleased how we played, and I was pleased. If you look at during the season, we've played good at times, but and then kind of trickled off in the second half. And I thought we came out and really played with a lot of intensity in the second half, and I think we got better as the game went on. And that's the first time that's happened all year. So and you can look at coming off that break of kind of maybe shaking off some of the rust, but get better throughout the course of the game. I hope we continue to do that moving forward.